Hi everyone, in this video I am going to discuss one of the feature of Java 8 that is optional. So before Java 8, developers used to put a null check code where there is a possibility of object value is null to avoid the null pointer exception. So having a null check code everywhere in the application becomes a boilerplate code, so it's very annoying. So starting with Java 8 optional class which handles this type of scenarios. So optional, it works as a container for an object of type T. Suppose if the value for the object is not null, then it returns that value, and if the value for the object is null, then it allows us to do predefined action to avoid the null pointer exception. So we will discuss about optional with the help of example. So how to how to create a object for the optional. So to create an object for the optional is pretty much simple. So here optional dot empty. So optional dot empty, it gives us optional object with empty. So it means it does not have object in it. So as of now it is empty. So if you want so this one optional dot off. So optional dot off, which returns optional object with string as a object of type in it. So it contains string object, and there is another way of getting the object. So off null label, one way is off method, and another method which help us to get the object of optional is off null label. So difference between these two methods is when you set a null here, and that time when you try to access that optional, then it will throw null pointer exception. Yeah, here null pointer exception is thrown. Now same thing I will do for the second method. I will comment this and put here, and I will set null. If I try to access the optional object, it won't throw null pointer exception. It will wait some, yeah, let me rerun the application. It will print optional dot empty, so it means it does not have anything in it. So now this method is recommended, so you can use off null label. Now so this is about setting the object for the optional. So I have a list here, and this method is returning list, and I need to check whether the list value is null or not null. If it is null, then I need to uh, you know create a initialize initialized list and return it to the this list of opt variable. So here is the traditional way of handling this scenario. Suppose you have list, you first time you will check whether it is a null or not null. So if it is not null, you will return the same list, and if it is a null, then you will initialize the list and you will return that to the corresponding list. So now if you handle this same scenario using optional, so it will be like this. So this list has a null, as you know, because this method is returning null. It is returning null, and so as of now optional doesn't have any object in it. So when you access and you will on the opt.list you will check, or else you will define some action if the object value is null. Here list is null, so we are defining some actions to the optional. So if the list is null, I want a initialized empty list, so I am returning that to the corresponding list here. So same way, same scenario I handled here, which was earlier handled through traditional way, and this is handled with the help of optional. So this is about defining a action to the optional. So if I print a value here, what I will get a empty list. Let me rerun the program. Here I am getting the empty list. Instead of throwing a null pointer exception, I have reinitialized the list and set it to the corresponding variable. So this is about defining an action to the optional. So now I'm going to discuss even more complex scenario where we can use optional. So suppose you have a user and user has an address and address has a street. So if the value for street is not null, then you will return the same value as it is, and if it is a null, then you will return a default value for that street. So to handle this scenario, we have written this old-fashioned code. So it is looks more complex, and if you handle same scenario using optional, so it is very much easy using optional. So I will get a list. So using list, so using this is list, I will use a map. I will get the address, and once I get the address I will get the street. If the street value is not null, then I will return it as it is to the variable, and if it is null I will return this value not specified. So let me print the value. So as of now I am this list is null, so I should expect a result is not specified. Yeah, and if the value for the street exists, then it will print that value, otherwise it will print the not specified. So this is one scenario where you can use optional, and another scenario where you will instead of throwing a null pointer exception, you want to throw some other exception. So as you know, this user is null, and here what I am doing, instead of throwing a null pointer exception, I am throwing illegal argument exception. So sometimes scenario, you know, uh, some scenario you don't want to throw the null pointer exception, you want some other exception, uh, wa- wants to throw some other exception. So this is about optional. So optional, which help us to avoid the null pointer exception. So that is the biggest advantage of optional. So that's it, and thank you for watching this video.